Athens. So what I'd like to talk about today is entrepreneurship as a mindset, and I hope something I'm going to say today will maybe change the way you think about entrepreneurship. So, as a lifelong entrepreneur, I've always been fascinated with a few essential questions. How does an ordinary person who has no advantage in life, often from a disadvantage, how do these people manage to identify opportunities that the rest of us seem to overlook? How do they do that? And where do they get the fortitude? How do they marshal the resources to turn their ideas from nothing into something? In my opinion, these are the essential questions about entrepreneurship that we should all be asking ourselves. So this is a question I became, I would say, obsessed with. And I began to look at, my original thought was that entrepreneurs look at the world differently. And if I could somehow understand and articulate those differences, this could empower others. So I've always looked at entrepreneurship through this lens of empowerment, not coming at it from a business perspective. So I'm coming at this a little bit differently, but really scratching away at these questions. How do they do that? Is it luck? Is it DNA? Is it circumstance? Or is there a method to the madness? So that's what I'd like to share some of it with you. So I became obsessed with these ideas and began to read the biographies of entrepreneurs and started to dig into social psychology and understand entrepreneurship at its essence. And a funny thing happened along the way. I met this kid named Jason. I met him when he was 12 years old. That's a picture from his 6th grade yearbook. And I met Jason when a friend of mine took him in as a foster child. So Jason's mother is in prison. He's never known a father. He's in his 4th foster home. At the time, I was a single dad with 2 small boys of my own that I had joint custody of. I was running a business that I had created, and I just kind of took a shine to this kid, brought him to work on weekends sometimes, brought him to family dinners. And when he was about 15 years old, he went back to live with his mom, and I lost kind of my influence over him. And this lasted a short period of time. He's now in high school. He's a junior in high school at age 16. He's got a 1.7 grade point average. He's not doing well in school. His mom reoffends. He's washing dishes at a restaurant. He drops out of high school. So I got custody of this kid. I convinced him to let me have custody of him. I got a judge to give me custody, got him in our house. My boys were already familiar and very comfortable with him. Got him enrolled in our local high school. And then I got him a job working for a friend of mine for a minimum wage, sweeping floors. And in my mind, I had the patient stabilized. I got legal custody of him. I got him enrolled in school. I got a job for him. He's stable. Heart's beating regularly. We can pull him out of the ER. So I'm all proud of myself at this point in time until Jason comes to me one day and says, "This job that you got for me, it sucks." He said, "I hate this job. You're always talking about entrepreneurs. Why don't you help me start my own business?" And I was completely taken aback and startled by this request. I had a 16-year-old kid who had dropped out of high school with a 1.7 grade average, who knew how to wash dishes and sweep floors. So I'm an entrepreneur, right? We got to try. What do you know how to do? You know how to sweep floors. We made a flyer. I got a bucket and a broom and some flyers and some masks and some gloves and sent him out in the world and told him to charge $20 an hour for his service, which he was very, very reluctant to do. Because what I was asking him to do, what I was trying to explain to this kid, the rules for survival as an employee don't apply. They're different rules as an entrepreneur. So long story short, I'll spare you all the details. Soon, after many fits and starts, he got a customer. I just told him to do what he said he was going to do for the price he agreed to do it. He got a customer, then he got another one, then he got another one, and pretty soon he figured out how to earn $300 in a single day. So I saw a change in his behavior. This was a pretty cool experience. I noticed his grades were going up, and he's more engaged and a little more lively. And one of the things I saw happen, I now recognize it happened, was the locus of control shifted. From an external locus of control where he was bounced around in this world like a ping pong ball to one where he could steer and he could drive. So the day he graduated from high school, this document showed up in my mailbox from the White House. And I don't know if you could read all the fine print, but it's a presidential citation made out to Jason Lee Campbell, signed by the President of the United States. Outstanding academic achievement. So now I was holding evidence in my hand that entrepreneurship could empower people. So this experience led to that experience. Jason went on to graduate from San Francisco State University with honors, with a degree in foreign relations and economic development, and he's now working with a six-figure salary consulting in NGOs around the world. That was the first opportunity I had to teach entrepreneurship. And there's Jason. That's a recent picture of Jason in his home in San Francisco, California, where he lives. So that was the first time I had to teach I had an opportunity to teach entrepreneurship to another human being. And now I started to think, I thought this was going to be empowering, but not that empowering. Jason must be some kind of a freak. There must be something to this. I was asked to teach entrepreneurship in a local high school. They heard the story. They asked me to come and volunteer to teach. I jumped at the opportunity because I wanted to test these ideas on a larger sample. And we told the kids, we don't care what your grade point average is. The only requirement to show up in my class is you got to come to school an hour early. Because I got news for educators out there. Your willingness to get out of bed before everything else is almost as important as your GPA. To my astonishment, 24 kids came to my class for an entire year, an hour before school. I started to get phone calls from parents saying, what the hell are you giving away over there? I couldn't get my daughter out of bed in the morning, and now she can't wait to get to school. I had these kids starting businesses. They were engaged. We had class on Saturday morning, volunteer class. A fourth of the class came every Saturday to talk about their ideas. They were engaged. And at the end of this process, these kids told me we wanted to learn from real entrepreneurs. And what we learned, we understand how the world works now. We understand the importance of knowledge and learning and education. And we can see ourselves playing at a higher level. Now, I'm not an educator in the traditional sense, but I'm pretty sure that's the Holy Grail. So as a result of that class, I said, I'm one guy. How do we scale this? How can we do this in classrooms and communities around the world? How can we infect the next generation with these ideas, with this meme of entrepreneurship? Because I saw what they're teaching in classrooms doesn't at all map with reality of what entrepreneurs are actually doing. So my idea was to create this classroom tool and interview entrepreneurs and let the entrepreneurs be the instructors and let the teacher be the facilitator. We were hired by the Cisco Entrepreneur Institute in 2007. They gave us a platform to analyze the entrepreneurship education space around the world and find the gaps, and we found gaps. They also gave us a platform to go all over the United States and interview what I'll call unlikely entrepreneurs. In this interview process, I wound up in Tulsa, Oklahoma to interview a guy named Cliff Talbert, who was one of the founders of Stairmaster. And when I asked him, Cliff, he's about 65 at the time, I said, Cliff, where did you learn how to start a company like Stairmaster? You all are familiar with Stairmaster, yeah? The exercise company? I said, where did you learn how to do this? What influenced you? And he sort of looked off in the distance and he said, you know, I was born in the Mississippi Delta to a teenage mother. I didn't know a father. I was living with relatives. I was a foster child. And he said, I was working in the fields. He said this was the expected way of life. Field truck came at 6 o'clock. You got on the field truck, you went out in the field, and you filled your sack, and they paid you for your sack of cotton. Almost done. So, as Clifton began to tell me this, he said, you know, when I was 13 years old, I went to work at the local ice house my uncle happened to own. And it was my Uncle Cleve that began to tutor me in the ways of the entrepreneur. And as Clifton started to describe what his uncle was telling him, I realized, you know, there's no formula really for success as an entrepreneur, but there's a fundamental logic. And it's a logic that transcends time and circumstances, socioeconomics. It's a very simple logic. It's just different from the way we've been trained to think. So that led to a partnership with the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. We created the Ice House Entrepreneurship Program. It's a tool that has spread all over the world. My colleague Pamela Morgan and I just came from Sofia, where we trained 30 teachers from universities all over Bulgaria how to implement this program. It's designed to inspire and engage all students in the fundamentals of entrepreneurial thinking and process. I have a session this afternoon. If anyone would care to join me to learn more about it, thank you very much.